Greetings from northern Minnesota, friends. This is Richard with the Hunter-Gatherer Society. Again, not with my faithful companion Dozer. Just out here, it's our final day in Minnesota, and decided to do a little bit of an exploratory walk. The last video I went out, I was specifically looking to identify one plant in particular, trying to determine, what it was between a couple different options. And I apologize if the lighting's a little weird on this. I'm under a elm grove here, and a little sun and shade coming through, so you might be seeing some change in lighting. That's the sun. It's a gorgeous day out here. It's 75 degrees and no humidity. I'm enjoying it. A little reprieve from the Florida heat. And so today is just an exploratory thing. We've been here for a few days. We've had a memorial service for my father-in-law who passed away from COVID. We celebrated my mother's birthday. We celebrated my mom and dad's anniversary, and we had a family get-together. And so it's been a few days of just a lot of fun and a lot of food. And so not a lot of time for foraging or preparing foraged foods. But I always like to get out when I'm somewhere new. I like to explore the area, I like to see what's out there. And as I mentioned in the previous video, this is an area that I grew up in. I walked these trails as a young kid, and it's interesting, I didn't grow up in a foraging environment. I'm learning now. I'm learning every day. But I remember my grandmother, on this property in particular. This piece of property that I'm on is part of an original family farm that's been in our family for probably 80 years. And it was much larger at one time, a couple hundred acres probably, and it's now, it's down probably, I suppose, 26, 28 acres of land. And so there's a lot of memories for me on this property. And one of the things I remember is being out with my grandmother or my uncle, and I didn't realize it, but we were foraging at the time. We didn't do a lot of greens. We definitely didn't do mushrooms, but we did do some wild edibles. For example, one of the things I would have foraged here with my grandmother would have been wintergreens. And I remember that as a kid, finding these little red berries on the ground underneath that plant and getting to taste them. And it was such a neat experience to have, something that stuck with me my whole life. Also, I was walking with my son yesterday, and we found honeysuckle, and that's something my grandmother would have plucked off, and we would have nibbled on the ends of it for that sweet honey flavor of that honeysuckle. Now, there's no berries in here. It's early June, and things are, the nights are down in the 40s still, but there's no berries on the plants, but I am finding wild strawberry, raspberry, I'm finding wild blueberry plants, and things are just starting to flower and just starting to start. But those, again, are things that we would have harvested as kids on this property. And, again, didn't realize, we didn't know it was foraging at the time. It was just time with your grandmother. So today, for me, is not about gathering any wild edibles and preparing them, although I may grab a few dandelion flowers and dip them in some flour and fry them up real quick, just for a little treat. I might do that yet. But it isn't really about gathering, a lot of edibles. It's really more about walking through this piece of property, walking through the memories, listening to the birds, enjoying this beautiful, sunny, moderately warm weather, and rediscovering some of the plants on this piece of property. Because again, when I was walking this in my youth, in my teens, in my young adulthood, I wasn't a forager. I wasn't looking at the plants and what I could eat, what I could prepare, what treats there were. And so that's kind of a unique way to go back through this piece of property and rediscover it. And I'm finding great joy, great peace, and I get a little walk down memory lane as well as I walk through this property. And on this piece of property, I've already seen deer here this morning. There's always deer somewhere on this property. Oftentimes there's turkeys here, and there are bear that come through here occasionally, although they'll stay away from me. They won't bother me at all. But you oftentimes will see wildlife here. There is grouse as well on this piece of property. It's surrounded by another 100 and some acres of potlatch land. Potlatch is the paper company. That was originally part of the farm. It's actually not even owned by Potlatch anymore. It was sold to private party, and they use it for hunting. So we won't explore into that because, they've asked us to respect their boundaries and stay off of it, in which we will do. So But anyway, today we're just going to look and see what we can find, identify a few plants, and take a walk down memory lane. So come along with and let's see what we can find. I love the early morning. It's not too early now. It's probably, you know, I think it's probably around 9:30. But the birds, they're still just singing away. And like I said, I've already seen one deer out here today. There's a lot of edible plants on this, you know, on this property and in these woods here. And you know, when I was younger, I didn't really realize what they were. Now this one, of course, is one that as a kid I grew up foraging with my grandmother. Many of you recognize that right away. That's a wild strawberry plant. It's got its first flower on there. Serrated leaves. Once you see them, once you recognize them, even without the flower, you know right away what it is. And of course with the flower, that really brings it home. But again, that's a wild strawberry plant. We're several weeks out from berries being on there, but there will be. And of course, wild strawberries, for anyone who hasn't foraged them before, they're not like the strawberries you're going to find in the grocery store. They're very, very small. But when you're out in the woods and you find these little berries on the ground, on those little plants, there's just something special about that. And especially as you're introducing young kids to foraging, berries are a wonderful way to do that because, you know, think about, you know, you're a young kid and you're in the woods and it's like an adventure when you're out here. And then, you know, you find, I mean, you know what a strawberry is even at a young age. And so you find these little berries, and it's just such a great way to connect kids with the natural environment and start teaching them, you know, that you can find useful and edible plants here. Now, of course, you have to be careful with kids, making sure they understand the rules. But it's a great way to introduce them into the foraging. Now, here's an interesting find. Actually, there's two of them here. Look at this here. So this one I've been seeing quite a bit around the property. Let me show you that. So you've got a rosette. Now for those, you know, fairly new to foraging, rosette means it all comes out from a center stalk. So it branches out around that stalk. And many of your plants that you'll forage are like that. And we're going to look at another one here in a second that's similar. Now this one here, for those that aren't familiar with it, this has like a soft, like cottony feel to it. It's very fuzzy, super soft. It's also fairly thick. Now on the back side, you'll notice the veins branch out from the stem to the edge. But again, that soft, fuzzy feeling, that's the key to this plant. And now mullein is edible. These leaves can be eaten, and they can be cooked or eaten raw. But it's used more as a medicinal plant. Now this is used for, you know, I would say primarily for lung issues, right? Respiratory things. So, and that can include sore throats, breathing difficulties, pneumonia, any bronchial issues. And it's used as a tea. Of course, it can be dried and ground as well. But another use that people may not be familiar with, this is thick, doesn't pull right apart, and it's soft and fuzzy. And you're out hiking and you have to use the restroom and you need toilet paper. That is natural toilet paper. So multi-purpose. Now right next to it we have another edible. And we have a thistle here. Now he's a little one. You're not going to get much off of him. Sorry if let me see if I can spin around and get the sun on that a little bit better. There we go. Now this one here, let's see if I can get close enough, and you'll see the little barbs on the end of those, on those leaves. So, and then look down below around that stalk. Now that one there, I wouldn't harvest anything from him. I mean, how are you going to get those little barbs off? But as that becomes a larger plant, you can eat the stalks, just scrape off the little barbs. And you know, you can saute that up, put it in a soup or a stew. But that one is one you definitely do not want to get the barbs in. They're not going to cook out. So thistle is edible. to my knowledge, pretty much most, if not all, thistle is edible. But again, it's a difficult one to harvest. There's another small mullein, a whole bunch of thistle in there. Oh, here we go. This is wild raspberry. It's a young plant. He'll grow up and produce some tasty little berries. But, you know, this time of year, these leaves on this wild raspberry can be used for tea. They make a nice tea, and it's a very nutritious plant, and you know, has some medicinal benefits as well. And so this is a good time of year to harvest these and enjoy these leaves. But they're very, once you recognize those too, again, an easily identifiable plant. You can see through here, there's a lot of mullein. There's a larger thistle. He'll get to be pretty sizable if he's not cut down. So right in this little area here is a lot of mullein. If I was more ambitious, I'd pick a little bit of that and ship it back, and then run it, you know, store it, keep it for medicinal use. Again, for colds, pneumonia, bronchial issues. We're gonna head back in the woods here and see what else we can find. There's one right there. There's a good find, you guys. I'll get close. You'll probably recognize it pretty quick by the little berries that are starting to form up. That is a wild blueberry. It's actually several plants here. Now it's just starting to form the berries. But here in a few weeks, those will be loaded with berries. Again, early June, I think it's the 6th today. So I would say first week of July maybe. Last week of June, first week of July, there'll be some berry hunting to be done here. For anybody who has not been to Minnesota, I'm telling you guys, there is some amazing beauty in this state. Now someone's going, yeah, but what about winter? Yeah, that's true. The beauty is short-lived here in the summertime. But while it's here, it's absolutely gorgeous. Oh, here's one. Look at that. You guys can see here the dandelions. Now, that's actually not a dandelion. There are dandelions throughout here, but here's one that's kind of interesting. Now, there's no flowers on here, but that leaf is very distinct. That is red clover. Now, that is also edible. The flower is, of course, the best part. The red clover is the better edible of the two clover, you know, the white and the and red. Now, in some areas, there is a white clover that is not edible. In this area, the clover is, both are edible. However, this is the better one. Now, you can eat these leaves. They can be used in salads. You can saute them up. And of course, when it flowers, that's the best part. That's a great one. Now, when you're in Minnesota, one of the things while I'm sitting here talking is, you know, of course, mosquitoes. That's, you know, the Minnesota state bird is the mosquito. And this time of year, they're just starting to get pretty aggressive. But there's another thing that you really want to watch out for, especially when you're rooting around down here in the weeds. And that is leaves of 3, let it be. So that is poison ivy. It's got a very distinct ribbed leaf. You can see that. But again, you're looking for that distinct leaves of 3. Let it be. So be very aware of that when you're out here, because, you know, that can really ruin a weekend. Some people, you know, I'm pretty good about it. I can walk around in it and it doesn't faze me too much. However, other people like my wife, just getting near it, they break out and it's a terrible rash. So just be aware of that. Stay away from it. Definitely try not to touch it. Someone's talking to us. Man, here's a great treat, you guys. Kind of going slow because oftentimes there's deer laying down in this area. Haven't seen any this morning. They moved through earlier, but look at this. This is a wonderful treat. Spruce tips. Now most of these are getting pretty. I mean, they're still usable, but they're right at the end of their usability. Now these are wonderful. Just bust these off here, just pluck them right off. That's the new growth of the pine tree. And take a few of those, put them in your little camp stove with some water and make a nice tea out of them. Very high in vitamin C. It's a taste you're either going to like or you're not. I do enjoy it. Others don't. But I do really enjoy it. Now the other thing you can do with these, now here's what we're looking for here. I always look for the little caps on them. They haven't shed their cap yet, so they're going to be a lot more tender. The smaller the better, especially if you're nibbling them. Here's one, here's a good one. So I'm going to knock that little cap off. Perfect, where are you here? There we go, perfect eating size. Oh, man, that tastes so good. Now again, you're either going to like that flavor or you're not. I really enjoy it. To me, it just tastes like spring. It's got a very strong flavor to it. And again, you can just take these and make a tea out of them. Obviously, you can nibble them, so you can throw them in a salad, throw them in a soup. I've thrown them into pasta before, just saute them up. They make a nice addition. It's a unique flavor to add to your dishes. You can, if you make beer, try using the spruce tips to make beer. Well, my local brewery right now has a spruce tip ale on tap. The other thing you can do is take these while they're nice and tender like this, and you can dry them up and then grind them into a powder. Use it as a seasoning. Use it for seafoods, chicken, I mean any poultry, pork, any seafoods. It's a wonderful season, and you can store it year round. So one of my favorite things this time of year. The biggest thing with these is they're not going to stay on the trees very long. So they're one of those things you only get for a little while during the spring. And so they're a special treat. And I really enjoy these short-term things. Of course, it would be nice if they were around for us all year long, but they're not. And that, I think, makes them even more special. Just like a morel mushroom, which just, we will not find today. I mean, maybe we will, but I find it unlikely. I've never seen one on this property. But, again, they're very valuable because they're only around for a little while. And it makes it even more special. So if you take some of these, don't take enough to damage the tree. Just, take enough for your enjoyment. Store some for over the year. It doesn't take a lot to make a seasoning. It's a wonderful treat. Look at over here. Oh man, look at this beautiful little bush. A lot of wild raspberry underneath me here. There we go. Look at that. That's the leaves on it. You can see that. And there is the treat. That is a honeysuckle. This is what we want. Want those little crowns. This is another spring treat. You're not going to probably find this later in the season, or just not very often. I don't know that I have. So it's really more of a spring treat. As a kid, we would just nibble the crown off. There it is. It's got a sweet honey-like flavor. I found that to be just a wonderful little thing. As a kid, that was one of the great discoveries with my grandmother and my mom. Sweet little flavor. The whole flower is edible. Or I don't even know what it is. Flower, or I think it's a flower. Oh, nice and sweet. Just one of those spring treats. Again, tastes like spring to me. Down here among the honeysuckles, again, we've got wild raspberry. But if you look down in there, we've got more wild strawberry. All sorts of fun treats, many of which are only available for a limited time in the spring. And as you forage, you know, you want to learn your seasons. Everything has its season. Mushrooms, plants, especially up here in the North Country. Everything comes on quick, lasts for a limited time. So enjoy it while you can, harvest it responsibly. Dandelion. When I was a kid, we used to take these dandelions, that's their seed pods, and if you can blow all this off in one breath, you make a wish, right? I'm a little older now, but I still got it. Time to make a wish. Things we remember as kids. Simple pleasures, my friends. Absolute simple pleasures. But lock these in with your kids now, or your friends, your spouse, your brother, your sister, your cousin, just whoever it is, your coworker that you forage with, because you will remember this all later, and it will bring back memories. Let's keep poking around back in here. This guy here is already getting some breakfast. Enjoying that dandelion. I don't spend too much time with dandelions. I think most people that forage are pretty familiar with that. This is a perfect time of year though to harvest these greens. Very distinct leaves, very easy to identify. Even at this young age, they're a little bitter, but they're not bad. But if you really want to experiment with the dandelion, I would recommend your first attempt, harvest those flowers. Take off the heads. Behind it you'll have some green leaves. If you can peel a few of those off, that's even better. Wash them good. Dip them in a little flour. Or roll them in a little flour. And then just fry them up. Doesn't take much to fry those. That's a great little spring treat. It's an easy to identify plant. No risk of any, eating the wrong thing. Once you know how to identify a dandelion, that's pretty basic. That's kind of a great starter plant. And if you do the flowers, it's probably one of the healthiest parts of the plant, if not the healthiest, and certainly the best tasting part. And so you can add that, like I said, just fry them up and have them as a treat. Put them on a little cracker or something. It's a great way to introduce foraging, again, either to yourself, to friends, family, kids. But just remember the rules, The rules I started foraging with: never say, I think, I believe, or I'm pretty sure. Only eat what you absolutely know for sure, is edible. And if you're not sure, check with a local expert, because it's not worth risking it. Plenty of food around. No sense taking a chance. But dandelion's a great starter. And I think that's a great way to do it. Now, the other thing you can do, here's one here. I like this as well. There it is. The unopened flower pod. You can take those before they've opened, and again, add them into a stir fry. That makes a great, it's a great way to use it. It's a mild flavor, and it's a nice addition. You can actually add those right to a salad. Nice and mild, a great way to start. Let's keep poking around. There's an interesting find. There's some more up here. We'll get away from that leaves of 3. We will let it be. There they are. This looks pretty safe here. Look at this, guys. Aren't those pretty? Again, very distinct leaf pattern. Get a close up of that if I can. Got some unopened flowers yet. That, my friends, is wild geranium. That is also an edible plant. The whole plant is edible raw or cooked. And as with many wild plants, the younger you find it, the better off you are. So I see some younger leaves down towards the base there. Oh, there's a little poison ivy down there we'll stay away from. But it's a pretty little plant. Another wonderful edible. Now, when you start putting all this together, you know, we've got the mullein, and we've got the spruce tips, we've got dandelions, we've got the wild geraniums, and we're starting to get a salad, especially with the, the dandelion buds. I see a few around here. You know, a couple of the sweet treats that we found. We're starting to formulate a pretty nice little salad. So as you walk through this, if you were collecting, I think by now we could have had ourselves a little meal. Again, not doing that today. However, you certainly could. This would be worth a walk in a few weeks. This is all wild strawberry through here. But we found several nice edibles. Well, I've moved up along the edge of the road. It's actually looking for a little bit of plantain, but I keep running into this plant, which is kind of interesting. It's got a very unique, there's a little poison ivy right next to it, so we won't reach in there. It's got a very unique leaf structure. I swear it looks like a pot plant, but it actually isn't. This is sulfur 5-finger, or sulfur cinequil, and this is reported as a medicinal plant and used as a poultice for like wounds and burns. And I apologize for the traffic noise. And again, I moved up near the road, so you're going to hear the cars go by. But again, the reported use for this is a poultice for like burns and wounds. It's also reported to be used to treat sore throats. So there's no reported toxicity of this plant, but it's not known as an edible. But again, just an interesting medicinal plant, very distinct leaf structure. And it will generate a yellowish flower at some point. One of the things I've been looking for, and I moved up to the road for it, is plantain. Now, I haven't seen any plantain today on this walk. However, I did see it the other day. I took a walk, went probably 3.5 miles along the road, and I saw several plants. And that's always a fun one to find. Another easily identifiable, very safe plant. Great medicinal uses, great edible. But so far, at least on this property, I'm not finding it. I believe those are hazelnut bushes. A little early for them. There's no nuts on there. Pretty easy to tell once they once they've got their fruit on them or their nuts on them. Ooh, look at there. Armyworm nest. Huh. Destructive little things. There's a Another honeysuckle. Yeah, we'll keep looking. See if we can find that plantain. Okay, more raspberry. So I am actually moved up along the property line now. I'm kind of getting back towards the house, but I'm still looking for a couple plants. Now this one I wasn't really looking for, but we'll accept it. That is dock. It comes out of a rosette, long narrow leaves. Another nice edible, nice addition to a salad. You know, a lot of times you read on some of these, you know, kind of debates on edibility or how much or, you know, quantity. But the truth is, you know, if I were to harvest a salad out of here today, you know, you're going to take a couple leaves of this and a few leaves of that and a few flowers of that. You're not eating these in bulk. And, you know, even like mushroom poisoning, oftentimes when you hear of mushroom poisoning, if you do a little digging into it, it's oftentimes they eat something in bulk. So if they'd had one, it wouldn't really affected them much. But they had 10, and that certainly affected them. So that's just something to keep in mind as you do this stuff is, you know, do a little more digging into what you hear, because there's a lot of opinions online and sometimes not as much fact to back it up. And, you know, so if you're willing to do a little poking around, look for scientific research, look for, you know, historical data. You find that some of the stuff online is more rumors or opinions than it is factual. Dock is one of those. You know, it is definitely an edible. There is a chemical compound in it that in high quantities, you know, can, you know, have some effects on you. But again, you're not going to, I mean, what we're looking today, you're not going to find enough to have that impact. So not something you're going to be concerned with. Part of the joy of doing this is not just about going out and picking a salad off the ground. Part of it is about learning about this stuff. So if you're going to do this, be willing to do the research and learn more about it and determine fact from opinion. That, of course, is just my opinion. Let's carry on. I got one more plant I'm looking for. It's kind of funny. Foraging is a funny thing. My last plant today was a relatively common one here, and I did see it yesterday on a longer walk in a different area. But you know, it's one that you typically will find in your yard, and it's typically all over the place, and that's plantain. And it's just kind of funny how you go out looking for something and you think, oh, that's going to be an easy find, and it's not. So you never know what you're going to discover. I think the wild geranium was a fun discovery today. That was one that I didn't see yesterday. So I harvested a few dandelion flowers. Talking about that, tempted me to do a fry with them. So I'll roll them in a little, wash them, roll them in a little flour, and fry them up, just as a little bit of a treat. And I think tomorrow morning I'm going to go harvest a bag of the spruce tips. I head back to Florida tomorrow, and I think I'll bring a bag or two of those back with me so I can dry them out and have that as a seasoning over the course of the next year. Again, they're only here in the spring, so I have the opportunity now and I should take it. So this was a great walk. I saw a lot of edibles. You know, what's neat is when you come out of this and you think, I could have made a meal out of what I found today. You know, we found enough greens and flowers. I could have made a nice salad, and I could have sauteed up some veggies, you know, but for a meal itself, I could have made a very nice salad with what we found so far. You know, we had, you know, the clover, the dandelion, the wild geranium, and we had dock. There is plantain around. I could have looked a little further. Like I said, I did see some yesterday. I could have went down there and got that if I wanted. And, you know, there's additional plants as well, I imagine, that we could find if we kept moving around. We had the spruce tips. All that could have been put together to make a nice little salad. But today was more just about seeing and exploring and, you know, going through some of this land I went through as a kid. So I really appreciate the fact that you joined me for this today. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did. I guess maybe that would be hard because you didn't walk through here as a kid. But I do hope you enjoyed it. And the mosquitoes are starting to come out and chase me around, so I think it's time to head back in and finish my time with my family. But again, I appreciate you joining me, and hopefully next time I see you, I'm out doing something wild.